Today I want to try to delve into answers to the question of should you seriously consider Tannus Armour inserts to replace your Cushcore? And just to cut through everything, I think the answer to that question is yes, but there's a big but related to that answer. So, before we go too much further, let me just talk briefly as to make sure everybody understands. Probably if you're watching this video, you know what Cushcore is, but this is a Cushcore tire insert that a lot of people use in their mountain biking tires. And this is probably a little bit lesser known to you guys, but this is a Tannus Armour insert. Now it's very different. Tannus makes two different kinds of inserts. One is an insert similar to the Cushcore insert, but this is actually an insert that goes around or wraps around a tube. So what you would do is you would continue to have inner tubes inside your tires, but the tubes would be encased in this Tannus Armour. Okay? So also, I'd just like to say that a lot of the stuff I'm going to be covered in this video has probably been as well or better covered by others in articles that I found on the internet, and I provided links to those articles down in the description. So if you really want to delve into this more or seriously consider whether you should use one or the other of these inserts, I'd encourage you to read those articles. I'd like for just to give you a little bit of history here. I got into mountain biking in 2011, and shortly after I got into mountain biking, I was introduced to this concept of taking the tubes out of the tires and making the tires tubeless using stands and rim tape. And I did that. I did it a number of times very successfully, thought it worked really well, big fan. And then, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, I learned that Cushcore could be inserted in addition to the stands and the rim tape and could give you a much better protected tire and would really help with the overall performance of the mountain bike. So I got into Cushcore, and since I learned about Cushcore until now, I've probably installed Cushcore probably about 150 times, either installing it or taking it out. I've done it on my bikes. I've done it on friends and acquaintances. It's a little bit of a trick to learn how to do it, but once you learn how to do it, it's not that bad. So, as riding with Cushcore, what I've found is probably the biggest benefit of Cushcore is you can really get very low pressure in your tires and they'll still work very well. As a matter of fact, with the lower pressure, it seems that particularly when you're cornering, the tires have a lot more grip. And because of the way the Cushcore sort of fans out and covers the rim, it really provides a lot of stability on the sidewalls of the tires. In addition, the stands will provide puncture protection from the tire, and the Cushcore, because of the way it sort of goes around the rim, it'll really provide protection against damage to the rim. Another big benefit of Cushcore is with that low air pressure, in addition to the mountain bike suspension, the Cushcore actually and the tires actually provide some dampening to the front and the rear tire just based on having the Cushcore in there. So there's some big benefits that you can really feel when you use Cushcore, but you have to pay a price to get it. And first of all, the stands, you can't use Cushcore really without having stands or some other sealant in the tires. And in my experience, where I ride, the stand sealant will sort of lose its effectiveness after about 6 months. If there is any stands left in the tire after about 6 months, it won't provide much of puncture protection. And in a lot of instances, by 6 months, the stands has dried out and there's nothing in the tube. Now, you can keep riding and the tire will stay inflated, but you're on borrowed time. If you have a problem, if you burp a tire or if you run over and get a flat, stands just won't just can't protect against that puncture or stop the leak from that puncture after about 6 months. The second biggest issue I've had with the Cushcore is that putting the tires on and off, it's very, very easy to damage the rim tape. And what happens is, you can't put the tires on unless you understand how to put the bead of the tire in the middle channel. But when you're putting the tire into the middle channel, you have to push it into the middle channel continuously. Repush it, repush it, repush it, because it's pulling out of the middle channel, but to get it on, you got to keep putting it into the middle channel. And that pushing it into the middle channel to take the tire on, to put the tire on, will rub against the rim tape, and it's very easy to catch the rim tape and damage the rim tape. And once the rim tape's damaged, basically you can't get an airtight seal. Then when you're removing tires with Cushcore, to originally break the bead and get the initial bead up over the rim, sometimes you have to really struggle to go around the tire to find a place where you can pop it over. And as a part of getting the tire tool up under the edge of the tire, you can easily scratch or damage the rim tape. And once again, damaged rim tape will not provide an airtight seal. Because it's hard to get the tires on and off with stands, it's hard to service the wheel. If you have a broken spoke or a broken nipple, you don't want to take the tire apart to fix it, because you got to deal with all the stands and the rim tape and the Cushcore. There's no sidewall protection with Cushcore. I didn't think that was a big deal until not too long ago. I actually sliced the sidewall on a tire, and that was the end of my day. I had to, basically ride out of there on the Cushcore, which you can do, but my day was over basically after that occurred. So there's no sidewall protection. Also, when the stands dries inside the tire, it can create large blocks inside the tire, just sort of like a blob inside the tire, and the effect on the rotation of the tire, it'll feel like it's bobbling in there. So a lot of times once it dries up, you got to go in there and clean out the inside of the tire, and that's messy and time consuming. And then the other thing with Cushcore is that because you've got to use stands and the rim tape, sometimes when you damage the rim tape and you take the rim tape off, the rim tape will leave glue on the rim. And to put new rim tape on, you got to remove the old glue. You don't have to, but it's best to remove the old glue. And when you remove the old glue, it can be quite hard to do. So anyway, those are some problems I've run into using Cushcore. Now, the Tannus inserts, I really wasn't familiar with them, but I had some friends who wanted to install Tannus inserts on their road bikes. So they brought the bikes over, told me all the great things it would do. I installed it very skeptically, put it all in their bikes, sort of was judgmental because they were using tubes, but put it all together, rode with them some, and became intrigued with the Tannus insert because it did work very well on their bikes. So I installed it on one of my road bikes, and sure enough, it worked really well. It was very easy to put on, take off, ran it over some glass and some other areas where it was prone to get a puncture. It did excellent protection. So then I got thinking, well, maybe I should try it with one of my mountain bikes. And I figured putting it in an electric mountain bike would be the best way to go, and I did. I replaced the Cushcore with the Tannus Armour and tubes, and now I've been running that bike and a couple of other e-mountain bikes for about 1.5 years, and overall it's performed very well. I have had some flats. Two of the flats came about when I was experimenting with lower air pressures, but I haven't had any of those air pressures or any problems with flats since I've hit on what I think to be the right air pressure for the Tannus inserts. But overall, in comparing the Tannus with the Cushcore, clearly with Cushcore you can run at much lower air pressures. And because, well, and just to give you a feel, with Cushcore, I normally ran about 20 PSI in the rear wheel and about 18 in the front. With the Tannus Armour inserts, I'm running around 24 in the back and around 20 in the front. Much less than that in the back, and you will, on a hard hit, run a pretty high risk of having a snake bite on the rear tube. The Tannus Armour does have sidewall protection. I haven't had a cut like I had with Cushcore. It's not a lot of protection, but you do have some. But the Cushcore clearly gives you better protection against pinch flats. However, Tannus does provide some protection against pinch flats because it does encase the tube, and it's not as bad as just having a raw tube there. The Cushcore really only provides protection against flats, just general flats running over a nail or something, as long as the stands works. And in my experience, once again, about 6 months. But the Cushcore lasts as long as the tube. I mean, it's, to my knowledge, it doesn't have a life. It's certainly a lot longer than 6 months, probably longer than 6 years. So, if you got Cushcore in your tires, odds are, the tires are going to lose some air pressure, lose a lot more over time than you will with the Tannus Armour. For me, installing the Tannus Armour is relatively easy. In some of the articles that I mentioned earlier, I read where people were struggling or had a lot of trouble inserting the Tannus inserts. I've had no trouble. Unlike Cushcore, where I've had failed installations where I've ripped the rim tape and then had to start all over again. With Tannus Armour, I've never had a failed installation. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I can, and I will. If you puncture the tube, as I'm sure you guys know, because you're probably not watching this unless you have some experience with bicycles, it's very easy to puncture a tube when you first learn to take tires on and off a rim. So that would be a risk with the Tannus. But even if you do have a failed installation with Tannus, it's much easier just to take the tube out, patch it, and put it back in than it is to try to reseal, take off the rim tape, clean the rim, reinstall the rim tape, reinstall the stands, and get the cushion. It's much easier if you have a failed installation. The Tannus is cheaper. I'm not sure that that's really a consideration, but probably you can install Tannus, on a regular mountain bike tire somewhere around $75 a tire or under. With the Cushcore, you're probably, once you buy the Cushcore, you factor in the cost of the sealant, the rim tape, and the valves, the special valves for Tannus. You're probably in the $95, maybe $100 a tire to get Cushcore up and running on your bike. So not sure that people really, when they're performing at a level where they want Cushcore, really care about the price, but the Tannus is a little bit cheaper. So it seems to me that the Tannus you could replace, and you can replace the Cushcore with the Tannus. It does work. It is a viable alternative. But if you want the ultimate riding experience and the best overall ability to corner and dampening, you're probably going to want to go with Cushcore, and you would just be willing to live with the installation issues. But if the installation issues are a really big deal and you don't need the absolute best in cornering and the maximum dampening from your tires, well, then you're probably going to be fine with a Tannus Armour insert and probably be much happier because you're not going to have to spend as much time messing around with the tires, much more consistent performance. So, once again, is Tannus Armour a serious alternative to Cushcore? My answer would be yes, in certain situations. I hope it's given you something to think about, and with that, I'll see you guys at the top.